At the start of the movie, we see Connor leaving prison. He encounters Garrett, who expresses his gratitude to Connor for serving time on his behalf and offers his help. However, Connor asks Garrett to never show his face again, and Garrett departs. The news reveals that in the previous part of the story, robots and police work together to eliminate superhumans. A new breed of less lethal Gurdian robots has been introduced by an officer. The narrative then shifts to 6 months later in a city filled with drones. A girl named Pavani is seen waiting for her brother. Tarak arrives, and they both head home for a meal. Tarak inquires about Pavani's studies, to which she responds that she's doing well but needs a few books. She, however, is willing to manage without them. Tarak assures her that if she concentrates on her studies, he will take care of the funds for the books. Meanwhile, we see Garrett at his headquarters, where he has significantly expanded his drug operations. He also shelters numerous superhuman children at his base. Tarak comes down and sells goods for these people, taking his share of the money. He demonstrates his unique ability to Garrett, where he can touch anything and mimic its color. He expresses his desire to venture into bigger things beyond drugs. Garrett's guard confronts Tarak, assaults him, and they depart. On the flip side, an officer addresses the common people and superhumans, revealing that he was once one of them and has also suffered the brutality of robots. He introduces specially designed robotic guardians that do not kill their enemies. Instead, they target their legs to knock them down. If the enemies surrender by raising their hands, they are spared. These robots are programmed not to harm anyone. The crowd applauds this revelation. In the evening, Garrett hands over a bag to his two associates, instructing them to place it in its designated spot. The pair proceed, unknowingly followed by Tarak. Tarak observes them depositing the money-filled bag into a trash bin. Once they depart, Tarak seizes the opportunity to steal the money from the container. When the officers arrive, Tarak conceals himself. Deepe, one of the arrivals, notices the absence of money in the bag and speculates that it might have been stolen. Kingston dismisses the concern, stating that Garrett will have to pay the price for his drug dealings regardless. An officer spots Tarak, prompting him to flee. Kingston deploys robotic guardians called Connor's Tarak. Tarak surrenders by raising his hands, but Kingston orders his execution. Elsewhere, Tarak is given a lethal overdose of a substance referred to as a side truck, resulting in his death. Pavani witnesses this and is subsequently attacked. The following day, we see Connor, who is employed as a cleaner at a community center. He encounters Officer Davis, who acknowledges that Connor served jail time in place of Garrett. Garrett has since established a substantial business in the city, dealing inside trucks, and has a working relationship with the police. Davis requests Connor's assistance, but Connor declines, stating he no longer associates with Garrett. Davis leaves his contact number with Connor, offering his help if needed in the future. Garrett then meets Mina, the owner of the center, who laments the lack of visitors. Connor expresses that he finds joy in his work there. Meanwhile, Kingston and his team at the police headquarters observe his guardians, which Pavani has incapacitated using her powers. This baffles them as they watch Pavani demonstrate her abilities on video. One of Kingston's colleagues notes that the guardians are immune to electric shocks and wonders how Pavani managed to disable it. Connor then resumes his work. He later finds a frightened Pavani and brings her inside to speak with Mina. Pavani reveals to Connor that her brother was killed by a police guardian, to which Connor responds that the guardians are not programmed to do so. An officer arrives from outside, prompting Connor and Pavani to leave. Their departure is captured by a camera on the back road, and they head to Connor's house. The news reports that Tarak died from an overdose at a certain location. Pavani disputes this, claiming that the news is false, and uses her power to turn off the TV. Connor acknowledges Pavani's transgender identity, and her ability to manipulate anything electrical with her power. Pavani hears on the radio that officers are approaching their location, and indeed, officers with guardians enter the building. Connor and Pavani escape via the back road, but they are attacked by robots from a drone. Connor retaliates with a powerful electric shock, destroying the robots. Pavani uses her power to disable the drone, and they both make their escape. Connor encounters Garrett at a hotel. Garrett inquires about Connor's current needs, to which Connor responds that he is trying to help someone leave the city. Garrett points out a girl sitting behind Connor whose brother was killed by the officers. The officers are now after her due to her remarkable powers. Her brother was previously employed by Garrett. She has interfered with Garrett and his business partner's dealings. Connor questions Garrett's knowledge of these events. Garrett reveals that he had an agreement with Kingston to manufacture and sell psych trucks in the city without harming any superhumans. He expresses his willingness to take full responsibility for the girl. However, in order to protect her from the officers, Pavani will need to have her memories of her brother erased. Connor agrees to this. They then proceed to a house where Pavani is seated next to a girl. The girl takes Pavani's hand and begins to remind her of everything about her brother. As she does this, Pavani gradually starts to forget. This process saddens Pavani. Connor protests, stating that they were only supposed to erase one memory. A woman insists that all memories of her brother must be removed from Pavani's mind. Connor objects, declaring that they can't do that. At this point, a thug grabs Connor. Connor manages to shake off the thug. Suddenly, water begins to pour from somewhere due to a fire, and the process of erasing Pavani's memories is halted. Garrett spots Connor, who is visibly furious. Connor amplifies his electrical power in the water, delivering a substantial shock to all the thugs. He then escapes with Pavani, and they seek refuge at Mina's house, where Mina tends to Pavani. The trio then departs in a car. Meanwhile, a drone monitors Mina, and this information is relayed to Officer Kingston. Kingston orders a message to be sent to Garrett about their whereabouts. In the car, Connor pleads for Pavani's forgiveness, admitting his mistake. Pavani retorts that he intended to erase all her memories of her brother and labels him as terrible. Mina intervenes, acknowledging that while Connor may make mistakes, he is fundamentally good-hearted. Meanwhile, two robots are monitoring them. Garrett intercepts and halts Mina's car. He approaches them and extracts them from the vehicle. All three of them are apprehended by the goons. The robot continues to surveil them, and Kingston also observes them from his base. Connor accuses Garrett of seeking revenge by killing a girl and acknowledges the malevolence of his fellow officers. Garrett retorts that Connor is responsible for the current situation and credits his own hard work for his business empire. Connor challenges Garrett to kill him before harming the girl. Garrett refrains from doing so. From the other side, Kingston orders everyone to be killed. The robots are then assaulted by the goons, resulting in the death of all of Garrett's associates. Mina is also wounded in the process. Garrett becomes enraged and insists that they must escape together. Mina agrees with Garrett and instructs Connor to handle the situation. She advances forward but is killed by the robots. Garrett, Connor, and Pavani manage to escape in the car. Garrett takes them to his childhood home. Connor blames Garrett for their predicament, leading to a dispute between the two. Pavani intervenes, urging Connor to assist the injured Garrett. They both tend to Garrett, who uses his power to extract a bullet from his body. They then proceed to treat his wound. Pavani inquires if Garrett used to reside there. Garrett responds by showing her the names of his brothers inscribed there. Pavani questions their whereabouts, to which Garrett replies that he is the only one remaining. Connor then declares that Pavani will have to depart from the city. Pavani expresses her fear that they will be tracked down just like her brother and asserts her unwillingness to flee anymore. Connor empathizes with her, sharing his own experience of losing loved ones. He acknowledges the internal devastation such losses cause, but encourages resilience. He announces his intention to seek assistance from someone. Pavani agrees to this plan. The following day, Davis arrives and they meet him. Connor expresses their collective desire to hold Kingston accountable for his misuse of robots and asks Davis to look after Pavani afterwards. Davis explains that Kingston is a high-ranking officer with political connections and other officers on his side. He also reveals that Kingston was responsible for the death of his old friend, Park. Connor insists there must be a solution. Pavani suggests exposing Kingston's misdeeds to the world, as his robotic guardians record everything. Davis mentions that Kingston has a private guardian at home. Garrett proposes that Pavani could transfer the footage from the guardian's brain to another device, using a large computer at his base. Pavani confirms her ability to do this, and Connor concurs. The trio then departs. Connor and Garrett proceed to Kingston's house and inform his wife that they are from the election committee and her husband will soon be running for election. Kingston's wife invites them inside. Simultaneously, Kingston arrives at his garage, secures his guardian, and goes inside. His wife introduces him to Garrett and Connor, leaving Kingston surprised. However, he maintains a pleasant facade in front of his wife. Garrett informs Kingston about his impending political career and their intention to discuss it. In the meantime, Pavani manipulates the garage lock and gains entry. She also takes control of Kingston's guardian. This activity is detected at Kingston's office. A call comes through to the house. As Kingston's wife moves to answer it, Kingston attempts to attack Garrett using his powers. Garrett intercepts him, revealing his awareness of Kingston's superhuman abilities. He criticizes Kingston for pretending to be ordinary and not utilizing his powers, which has led to their weakening. Garrett then drops the knife, bids them goodbye, and departs. Kingston proceeds to the garage, only to find his guardian missing. Pavani, now in the car, accesses all the footage stored in the Guardians' mind, including the recording of her brother's death and other misdeeds. They then head to Garrett's base. Upon arrival, they find no computer and are apprehended by Garrett's men. Connor expresses his regret for trusting Garrett. Garrett, using his powers, knocks Connor down and vents his frustration towards the police. With the footage from the Guardians' mind, Garrett now has the means to blackmail Kingston and put him in a difficult position where he can't retaliate. This is the reason Connor didn't want to collaborate with Garrett. Garrett removes the mouthpiece of the Guardian and hands it over to his trusted man. By this time, Kingston arrives with a full police force. Garrett confronts Kingston, presenting him with the head of his Guardian, from which he has extracted all data. From now on, Garrett will only pay Kingston half the money and expects no interference in his operations. Kingston, taken aback, stabs Garrett in the stomach. They then restrain Garrett. The officers and Guardians storm the building, attracting the attention of everyone present. Connor demands the Guardian's head, threatening to kill everyone if they approach. Pavani notices the media personnel below. The children hand over the Guardian's head to Connor. As the officers infiltrate the building, Connor retaliates with electric shocks, which they manage to withstand. The remaining children join the fight against the officers using their powers. Connor and Pavani escape through the back door. A boy attacks Kingston, who responds by drawing a pistol and shooting him. The gunshot is heard by the media and Garrett outside. Connor and Pavani continue their journey when they encounter a Guardian. Despite Connor's attempts to shock it, the Guardian remains unaffected. It tries to seize and kill Connor. Connor retaliates with a powerful shock that causes a blackout in the entire building, but the Guardian remains unharmed. It attempts to kill Connor using a dose of Psyche, but Pavani intervenes and takes control of the Guardian. An officer arrives with another Guardian. Pavani releases her controlled Guardian on him, which advances and kills the officer's Guardian. The Guardian then approaches the officer, who along with others, opens fire. However, the Guardian manages to kill him. During the gunfire, Pavani is hit by a bullet. Connor notices this, picks her up, and brings her down. As a Guardian attacks them, Garrett uses his power to restrain it. Davis arrives and halts all the officers. Connor calls over a girl from the media. Pavani, using her power and the Guardians' brain, transfers all the footage into the media's camera. This allows everyone in the world to witness Kingston's entire recording. Kingston claims that the Guardian doesn't harm anyone, despite it having killed numerous people. This footage is also viewed by Kingston's wife. Kingston then descends and attempts to kill Pavani, but Garrett intervenes using his power and halts him. Officers arrive and apprehend Kingston. Both Pavani and Garrett collapse from their injuries. The narrative then fast forwards a few months. Connor continues his job of cleaning the community center, which is now frequented by many children. Connor finds joy in this. He encounters Pavani there, who comments that Mina would have loved this place. Meanwhile, news reports announce that Kingston has been penalized for his wrongdoings. The government continues to experiment with other robotic technologies to manage superhumans. The usage of side trucks in the city has significantly increased. Upon hearing this news, Garrett, who is in prison, is filled with joy. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.